Welcome to Learning How to Paint Part 2. This is Learning How to Paint and Draw number 2. And in the previous and first chapter, we were learning how to draw a human figure from scratch, from nothing. And we made a female figure in the last part of the video number 1. This is the picture that we were drawing in the previous part. So what you need to do now is to draw your stick figures a lot from the beginning to just adding detail. Do that a lot. Copy photographs. Do it from your imagination and copy from photographs. Copy from paintings that you like. You need to copy a lot to begin your training to learn how to draw, until you feel that you have started to make some progress into realistic drawing. First, you need to become a human camera, a human printer that can render a drawing with your hand. What we would do in part 2 would be to start drawing other things that are not human, to draw objects instead of people, to just start drawing everything basically. Draw a box, make a square, make another square looking thing right next to it, fill in with a couple of lines, and you have made a box. That box could be a refrigerator if you put a handle there. That box could be a television if you make a circle inside, and refrigerator handle plus circle, that'll be one of these horrible machines that are microwaves. I do not like microwave ovens. I prefer electric ones, but that looks like a microwave oven. Let's make another box right next to it, right here, box, and then a couple of lines to make it look three-dimensional. There we go, there's another box right there. You might want to learn how to draw geometric figures to start. Triangles, and if you make a 3D triangle, you'll be making a pyramid. That might be the top window of a house. You make another box right here, and this could be like one of those dome looking windows that some houses have. I'm gonna make a couple of lines there to make it look like glass or something, and then I'm gonna make a little door right here. It's another rectangle. There we go. And then I'm gonna make a circle here. It's gonna be a window. And then I'm gonna make a car. I'm going to draw a car. So I'm gonna make a box right here, rectangle, 2 circles. That is basically a car. 1 more rectangle and it'll look more like a car. That's how a child might draw a car. That's how you will need to begin. And just add detail. 1 window here, 1 window there. That's my basic car. And I'm gonna draw the road right beneath it. 2 long lines like that. And there's the road. I'm touching everything else with the line, but I'll just have to work on hiding away some lines, whatever, skipping other lines. You just have to work on the detail, but in the beginning it's fine if you start sort of drawing all over the place and making a mess. That is just fine. As a matter of fact, it is important that you make a mess because it's gonna look ugly to you, but it's just because you want to become better. And you'll just have to start drawing until your drawing looks beautiful. The drawing of a woman in the middle of a country road, until you make that picture look wonderful. The woman, the country road, a restaurant there with round looking windows, anything you want. Let's make an airplane. To draw anything, why not just a rectangle? That's it. The point here is to make many elements, to draw more things, objects, cars, buildings, clouds, airplanes, cars, people, animals, cats, dogs, anything you want, to get going, to get practicing. And let's remember that we are looking into making lines at first. Let's not waste time with shadowing in, because that is something else. That is to sculpt a drawing. Right now we want to make lines because we want to create shapes and we want to bring elements into our picture. We want to populate our picture with new elements. Let's make a little lamp post here, There we go, a few lines, a little thing here, a little thing there, and we have a lamppost projecting some light. The thing is to make as many elements and to get as much practice as you can. Now, let's think about something called perspective. Perspective is something very simple. Let's make a horizon line right here. That's it, just one straight line, and I have made already sky and ground. So to symbolize the sky, I'm going to make a few little clouds, very childlike looking clouds. You can make them more complex if you wish to. There we go. That symbolizes the sky, and now I'm gonna make lines of perspective, like that. Lines this way, and I'm going to get them straighter as I go down to the middle. And then in the middle they should all be straight, my lines, and then they should once again start pointing the other way to make this thing called perspective. Perspective is a very simple thing which shows you when something is far away, near, and its position. So right here is the horizon in this part, and I'm going to make the sun right here. There we go, one circle with a few lines, and I'm gonna make a box very far away, a little square. I make a couple of lines like that, and I have made a box. I will color it in just for the shadow, just so that it looks like it's got a shadow on the side. So there it is, my faraway box. If I draw one that's closer to us in perspective, I'm just gonna make it bigger. Whatever's closer to you is big, whatever is far away is small. Just gonna color in the shadow very quickly, just like that, very messy. And now I'm gonna make a box that is even closer right here. So as I go lower on the page and I draw bigger things, it's an easy way to make something look closer to the eye of the viewer, and that is perspective. This is perspective. This is close by, this is a bit further away, this is a bit further away, and I'm gonna draw a tiny little box right here to show something that is even further away, something that is really far. I'm gonna make another one tiny, teeny weeny like this to show something that is very far in the distance. That's it, that's perspective. Close by, big, a little smaller, a bit further away, higher up on the page, and then this one here a little bit higher up on the page and smaller, smaller, smaller. That's perspective. This could be houses. I could be drawing a set of houses very easily, a triangle on the top of the square, and then another square, and that's it. I could also turn the houses around. I could draw them in a different position. Like, instead of having the wall on this side, I could make the wall on the other side. So I would rotate the house. The next house, I'm rotating it and putting it somewhere else. If you use a 3D program, you'll see all these things. There's a lot of people that use 3D and they don't even know how to draw. You don't need to know how to draw for using 3D, although it does help. It's an interesting thing, a 3D program to look into perspective. It kind of does perspective automatically for you, but in this case we're going to do the perspective ourselves. So there we go, I rotated this house, which is just the same model as this one, very simple, and as this one as well, but in perspective I changed its perspective by changing its position, and its position as well in the placement within the drawing. You can draw anywhere in any way you want, but I'm doing this in order to get some realistic point of view on what people call perspective. So here's the horizon, and everything begins here. This is the point that is the furthest away, and then things get closer as it radiates, as that point radiates towards you, actually. As the closer it gets, like this house, the closer you can draw it, and then you can draw everything tiny as it goes further away into the background. That's it. Sizes of things, the way they look depending on the rotation and the distance. That is perspective. For example, if I want to look into the perspective of something that I find difficult, Like, I wonder how to draw a cylinder, and I wanted to draw my cylinder that way. Instead of drawing it like this, like just one cylinder like that, I want to look at it from the top. I want to know what it is like to draw a cylinder from the top. So I make a model out of a marker, out of a regular household object, and I draw it. I look at it, and I see the little circle on top. I draw it. I see the larger circle below it. I draw it. And then I see that there's a couple of lines like that, which are these two lines, a half circle below, and it goes two lines nice and far away like this, one more half circle, and that's it. That's a cylinder in perspective. I might want to draw in the little lines from the top of the thing there that covers the marker, just to give it a bit more realism. Maybe you want to shadow it in like this if you have the time, if you want to dedicate time to that. There we go, and that's it. Very basic thing, and I use the household object to know how to draw that. If I want to know how to draw a prism, a prismatic rectangle, I just place it that way, and I think I want to draw a house, but I want to draw it as if I were looking at it from above, from the sky, instead of on some horizon. So I just take a household object and I copy that. One line above, a couple of lines below, one line below, and there's three lines here. 1, 2, 3. That's my basic shape. And then I can do whatever, just color in this part, put some shadows, work on it, invent whatever is missing to be a house. I can make the door, very easy rectangle, a doorknob, a couple of windows, one square with a cross in the middle, another square with a cross in the middle, and maybe I want to make a roof, so I just notice that I can just make a little line here, a little line here, little line here, and there we go. I'm making a house kind of looking at it from above. If you do that many times, you will learn the perspective of whatever you want to draw in any way you want to draw it. You might want to draw a car right next to the house, so I go very simple. I just make a rectangle, I close a line there, I make a wheel there, another wheel, I make the top of the car as a square, make a line there, make a line there, make a line there, a line here, and I make the back window thing here, one light, the front light, and now the defensive thing of the car, and there we go. I have a car seen from above. I have made a little perspective because I am bored of drawing something from the front, and I suddenly, for some reason, want to draw it from the top, like a eagle's eye view. There we have a car, and I'm going to make a little road like that. I'm going to make a little road. There we go. And I'm going to draw a tree. It's just going to look like a cloud, but without the line below. A little bit of a thing there, the roots. And that's it. That's a tree from above. That's a little countryside scene. Another tree. I put it down there, and I'm gonna make another tree, and I'm gonna put the roots once again down here, very simply drawn, and I'm gonna make a kind of a circular, irregular shape, and that's a little river. And I'm gonna make the little ripples, the ripples from the water, just like that. Ripples, 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 to make it look like water. There we go. That's my perspective from above, and I have made my first picture as if I were looking at it from above. You can make perspectives in any way you want, and it is pretty hard at the beginning to draw from a point of view that is not just a frontal angle. The easiest thing to do is to draw from a frontal angle, like we have been doing so far. So the thing here is to keep on practicing and copy pictures from magazines. There's a few tricks that might help you, like if you put below a photograph below the page, you fold it over the page, and you copy the picture below. It's not gonna teach you as much drawing as it would teach you to just do it your way. But if you do that, it might make you learn a few lines. Like you might learn how to draw a car and just remember that and make kind of your own little model of how you draw cars. Uh, I can barely see the picture below, but that's the thing, to copy it. So I put it there and I do it again with my left hand. I copy the little rectangle. I copy everything I can see below, but you can put and like another drawing, another painting, a photograph below, and copy some things and remember what you have copied. That might teach you a little bit of the shape of a car, the perspective, what the wheels look like from above, from below, from the front, whatever. It's a trick that might work a little bit for you, might not. The thing is to keep practicing, to keep doing it. It's very important not to stop drawing, because the moment you stop drawing, that's the moment you stop learning. So it really, practice is a fundamental thing, as we have been repeating here over and over. Practice. I'm gonna draw now a human figure seen from sideways. The nose is a triangle. The head could be kind of a circle but looking like a box with rounded edges. Neck, the body, a couple of lines like that. An arm, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. An eye, the mouth, the hair, and something difficult, which are the ears, but I'm going to make a half 8. I'm going to make a half 8 and another half 8 inside. I'm going to make a couple of nostrils, and then I'm going to make the hint of the legs that should be right there. That's it. It's a person looking sideways. The first thing as well, before doing all this perspective work, might be to draw things frontally and then sideways. And I remember it was very hard for me to draw people from behind, but it's actually almost the same as drawing them from the front. You just make a circle, rectangle, neck, and instead of drawing a face, the first thing I did from drawing someone from behind was I would fill the head with hair. So it would be just like a person seen from the front, but I fill the head with hair instead of a face. I make the hands here, there we go, and I would make a line here, and one line here, and one line here, and according to me, that is what a person looks from behind. It's kind of difficult. Then one day I put a little triangle there, and it looks like a person seen from behind, looking sideways. You'll do lots of tricks like this, something that works for you on how to draw an arm, how to draw something that is a little hard for you to do, some perspective that gets hard. There's always something that will be difficult for everybody. You might find it very easy to draw a hand. It's famously difficult to draw hands and feet. But you might at one point find a trick like maybe drawing the knuckles, maybe drawing the nails. You might one day draw a hand from a picture and learn how it looks like, and you might like forever sort of learn whatever you have seen on that hand and use it. Shoes and feet are famously hard to draw, and then some people always have traits of how they draw. Like I know some people that always make the legs really long, or very short, very big shoes, or tiny shoes, or for some reason the feet look in a strange position, the arms might look strange. But everybody finds something easier or harder to draw. It's just a matter of practice. So here we are. We are now drawing humans, we're drawing people in different positions. We're drawing objects such as cars. We're concentrating on feet, on hands. We're able now to focus on how to draw something that seems very difficult for us, something specially difficult. And we know that the only thing to do is to do it a lot and to use pictures, dolls, whatever you have close by, to copy that object, that photograph, that doll, to help you in improving and making your drawings more and more realistic each time. So at this point you have a formula on how to get better and better at drawing. So now you really need to practice a lot. You need to look into your favorite art books, copy some paintings with only pen and paper, copy some pictures. Once you have done that a lot, like a month of that, there is a whole world of shadowing that you can do. And you will learn from taking the shapes, looking at them, copying them. I copy the circle here, I copy a semicircle there, I copy the rest of the body of this little bottle I have with blue paint, and then I look into the shadowing, I see it, and I do it. Just like that, scritchy, scratchy, putting in some gray, some black, some tones of shadows, some light shadowing, some heavy shadowing. You just, basically you need to scratch in the shadows. Just, you find some hard shadowing and you start filling it in. You start filling it in, and then you look for more shadows, points of light, and just color it in as you go along. As you see it, you see some gray there, you color it in, you see something that is so dark that it's black, so you put a lot more ink to it. You go into light shadowing, so you just put a little bit of a very light touch there of shadow, and then you find more shadows there in your shape. You just go ahead and add and add and add. In the beginning you will feel that you're making a mess, that you're probably not doing it properly, but that is fine. That is how it's done in the beginning. Just find the shadows and color them in. Once you have shape and shadow, you're basically drawing. There are a lot of other things that you can do for a drawing, but that is your basic drawing technique. Once you have done that and practiced a lot, you can move into making a little box and collecting your acrylic paintings. So there we go. Now we are getting our paint tools together, and it's very simple. It's just this water-based paint. It could be watercolor, acrylics, anything. I would advise to buy cheap stuff in the beginning. This is very cheap paint, the one that I have right here. And also the brushes that you will use for your first steps into painting will be very cheap brushes, such as this one. I would not advise to buy expensive ones because there are some that are really seriously expensive. I've never really had much use for those, but just get brushes that are thick, thin, a little selection of several different brushes with different characteristics to see what type of brush most suits your style of painting. You might want to paint tiny details, you might want to make large strokes, you might be comfortable doing things with a lot of detail or very little, big paintings or tiny little paintings or something in the middle. So now that we are here with the water-based paint, you will see that thin paper such as this, which is really light and thin paper, works to give some first steps, but very soon you will need paper that is thicker. For practice you can use anything. The thing is that the water will bend your paper once you start using it. I'm gonna use this brush that I have randomly selected. I'm gonna color in this guy. If I start painting, if I start coloring in, and if I start drawing with the paint as I was drawing with my hand, with my pen, you will notice that, like, when you fill this whole page with color, when you paint through the whole thing, the water will deform the page. It's already getting deformed here. As you can see, the page with the thin paper is being deformed already. I start putting some more, and the more paint I add, the more water there will be on the page. Therefore, the page will get all wrinkly, it'll be bent, it will not be flat anymore, and well, I mean, you can flatten it later on, whatever, you can use that and frame it store it somewhere, keep your painting, your practice painting, but you just have to know that the paper will start being deformed. So it is better to, when you start using water-based paint and basically any other type of paint, to use thicker paper. You know, the more I apply paint, the more I need that. So right here I have this little box with cards, blank cards, and this is better paper because it's thicker. Now I need something bigger too for my painting, but this paper will also get deformed, but it'll give me better results. It'll definitely give me better results than the paper because it will get less deformed. It's stronger, it's thicker, so it'll be a much better surface to paint on. I'm just basically coloring it in. Painting is basically drawing with brush and paint instead of the pen, making the circles, making the triangles, making the human shapes, making the car shapes, the sky, the elements, everything you want to paint in. It's painting is doing that, is drawing with a brush. Painting is drawing with a brush. As you can see, the stroke from this brush is pretty broad, it's quite thin. I'm going to make a line right here. It's a pretty broad stroke. So if you want something thinner, well, you can make an effort with your hand to make it thinner, but you can also get a thinner brush. Or if you want a thicker brush and paint on a large surface, you're very welcome to do that. It's just a matter of style. In my case, I rarely change brush sizes. I kind of paint with the same brush size all the time, and I just make my whole painting with one size of a brush, and I just do it that way. Maybe I might use 2 or 3 different sizes, but I don't use a lot of different sizes. I kind of have a tendency to just do my whole thing with one single brush. Once you start painting, things get messier. The paper gets deformed, it gets wet. So I'm gonna switch from this notebook with thin paper to a sheet of much thicker paper like this, and I'm gonna use it as my painting surface now. And I'm going to use some green, some yellow, some red, and some blue paint, and I am going to have a jar with water and my brush. And I will also use brushes of different shapes and sizes, and I'm not really using shapes right now of many different shapes. It's just plain ordinary brushes. None of this is expensive gear. It's just pretty cheap, but it is. I did select it in a way that it's a pretty straight brush, either big like this one, or kind of tiny like this one's. They're kind of like a pen, these brushes. Some brushes like this one are kind of like all over the place. They're just like this one's a little too coarse for me. This one's kind of a is kind of a children's brush, which is not a bad thing, but children's brushes have a tendency to open up like that instead of and be just like messy hair instead of being just this straight brushes where you can do lines easier. So you might want to choose your brushes to paint more like with lines the way I do. So I have my water here to rinse my brushes and to take off the paint once I have used them. For the moment, I will not dissolve the paint with water because I can do that, which is the watercolor technique. As you can see, I have dropped a little bit of green right here on the page. There's water on the brush which has green paint, and I can use that to paint. I mean, I can already use that, and you know, it's paint, but dissolved with water, so it's this really thin coat of green, very light looking green. but this is more like the watercolor technique, and I am going into approaching something more of an oil painting technique. You might like the watercolor. I would advise that you take a look at very dissolved paint, and maybe even buy watercolor sets as such. They're kind of expensive, but they're very beautiful. Watercolor is very nice, but I'm going towards using thick paint without dissolving the paint at all. So, you know, I get my idea. I might draw it first. I might make a sketch first on paper, such as the drawings I have been making lately. This could be my idea. This could be my sketch. I might want to make my painting this way. On my eagle's eye look on a house and a car. So I just put my drawing over there, and I do my drawing based on my previous drawing. You don't have to do this. You can just start from scratch your painting. But right now I am copying the house I painted on perspective. I am copying exactly the same thing on this page, and I am going to just do it all over again with paint. First the shape, first the outline, and then I will do the rest. Outlining will not be what you might want to do forever as a painter. This way of painting to me is like making comics. When you make an outline and then you color it in, that could be your favorite technique forever, but you might want to paint differently later on. But in the beginning, I would recommend that you do lining first and then color it in. When you have painted a lot, when you have started to, if you really like painting and if you get into it, later on you might stop making this shapes with lines and paint differently. For example, instead of making the line here for the hood of the car, you might begin straight away with your advanced technique to just start with large chunks of color, and you might never want to make the outline. That might be your future technique, but in the beginning, I do recommend that you shape things in and then you start coloring them in. So you make a shape and you color it in later. That's my basic way of painting. I make a shape, I copy it from my previous drawing, and then I am planning to color it in. I'm not making exactly the same thing that I did previously, but something very similar. So there we go. I have now made my the sketch. I have made it into straight line, well, not straight, but just plain line sketching, and I can now proceed with the rest. I've made an extra tree and I have eliminated the lake. I've made a variation. You can do whatever you want. You're absolutely free on the paper. You can add elements, eliminate elements. I have done all my outlining now, and now I am free to just start doing something realistic. If you want to make everything very, very real looking. But a magical thing about painting is that you don't have to make things realistic. You can do whatever you want. Still, on the beginning, before you get your own special and personal technique, you might want to begin with the realistic thing. So I'm making a red roof. I am combining the red with the white, so I'm kind of making a pink front of the house. I'm gonna go for a blue car, so I combine blue and white, and I start coloring it in. I start putting blue paint on this car. There we go. I am just straightforward chucking in the paint. As you can see, I'm not being delicate at all. And I recommend that you not be delicate either. It gets boring if you're too delicate. If you don't go for it, you're gonna get bored, and it'll feel like a chore to make a painting. And the thing is to make it fun. So I'm just going at it. Now I'm gonna put some green on the trees. I'm not gonna get very uh, fantastic here with the things. I'm not gonna put a lot of fantasy in for the moment. I know some trees don't look green at all in reality. I'm gonna go for realism in this case. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow to this one. There we go. And actually I'm getting a different tone. As you play with the colors, as you play with paint, you will discover how adding white to the green does something, how adding blue to the green does something, how adding red to the green does something, how adding any type of color to every other color does something. So I'm gonna put some red for the tree trunks, and if I put some green it'll get kind of brown, but for the moment I'm just straight chucking in the red. I'm gonna make those tree trunks and finish my basic painting. Now there we go. Everything's pretty clear on the paper because there's not much paint in between. So now I'm thinking that I need to do something, not so that things won't just look like big blobs of paint, but guess what? I am a beginner, so I'm just gonna do it, because if I start getting scared of painting, of ruining my painting, I will be discouraged and I will not go on painting. So I'm just gonna add grass all over. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna put mainly grass all over this floor, and that's how I will make my painting. I will just continue. I'm gonna attempt to fill in the whole page with paint. I don't want to leave one single bit of space in between anything. I just want to color the whole thing. That's my plan here for this painting. Some people like leaving some space, or making everything very light colored or very dark. It's all up to you. It's a matter of your own personal taste. That's what painting is all about as well. If you like red trees, go ahead. If you like blue trees, go ahead. Small trees, if you don't even like trees, you can paint something else. But in this case, we're making our little landscape already on a perspective that is not frontwise. And that's also difficult. To be perfectly honest, I always had a lot of difficulty drawing and painting things that were not frontwise when I was learning to paint, when I was taking my first steps into painting. But you just need practice. If you like to look at things from another perspective, you just need to do it all many times, and you will succeed eventually. There's nothing you cannot do on painting and drawing if you put the time aside for doing it. If you enjoy doing it, that's the whole key of it. Because if you enjoy doing something, you'll start drawing, and soon you'll notice that 3 hours have passed and you have enjoyed it so much that you don't even know where the time went. When the time goes really fast, it means that you are enjoying something, and that when you enjoy it, it means you're well on your way to improve day by day. So there we go. I decided to make the road yellow, and that is basically my full painting. The car became very kind of the clearest thing in the middle. The trees became kind of shapes that kind of got swallowed in by the grass that I painted. So I'm gonna put a little bit more paint around the trees to reaffirm the tree shapes, but it really doesn't matter if I mess it up. If it doesn't really work, if it doesn't look like a photograph, it doesn't matter. It's a first step, and I have to take it. And there it is. This is my painting. I'm gonna add a few little bitty dots here and there, patches of grass, something. I want to experiment with the dots, so I just cannot wait to start making dots. And I'm just thinking, what if I put some dots in? So instead of having some hypothesis, some idea in my mind of what the dots are going to look like, I'm just going to go for it, and I am going to finish my painting with little dots. There it is. Some bits of it I insist are kind of unclear. It might look like a blob all over, but that's how very likely a first step into painting will look like. I'm just gonna try to make a bit of a shadow on the side of the house that barely looks like a shadow, but I'm gonna do it because I feel like doing it, and that's what you should do when you're painting. You should do what you feel like doing and just put it on the paper, put it on the surface that you're using. This paper, as you can see, is also bending a little bit with the dampness of the water contained in the paint. I didn't add any water, but water-based paint, of course, always has water on it. So the paper is getting the form anyway. The paper is getting the form no matter what I do, but it's definitely taking the acrylic paint better than my thin sheets of paper, which would get more of the form. So I'm gonna settle for this thick paper for the moment, and I will be painting more on this thick sheets of paper. So here we go. We're already painting at this stage with simple paint that children use at school and that people use for crafts. It's very good pigment. It's very good color. I find these colors to be really nice. They're inexpensive, and whatever you can find that is kind of like these paintings that you can find anywhere in the world on a stationery shop, just go ahead and buy yourself a little set of these basic colors, yellow, red, and blue, which are the primary colors. And then I would advise that you get some white and some black as well, and go for it. This is one of the first steps into painting, and this is how we conclude this chapter. Practice this a lot, keep up your drawing, and I will see you on the next part of this tutorial to learn how to paint from the beginning, from scratch, from level 0. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will see you very soon.